Happy New Year, all. Welcome back to Hot Topics. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, tell your friends and family, click the bell for notifications. See if we can build up some more traction here in 2025, build that subscriber list, the views. 2025 is upon us. Lots of excitement on the right, lots of consternation on the left. It's January 6th tomorrow, time to count the votes in Congress. Will the Democrats stop the count as they said they would try to do to keep the convicted felon insurrectionists out of office and ignore democracy? Dun, 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 dun. We'll see. It's Trump Part 2 time, 45 and 47. I want to talk today a little bit about the kerfuffle started by Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk over H-1B visas and how they differ in opinion compared to the MAGA base and what Trump has talked about, and how this relates to human capital. Human capital, economic concept, the physical, mental, intangible skills, knowledge we have from birth, from parenting, from education, from work experience, that's important for productivity, output, employment, increase in the standard of living, and how domestic human capital is important for a domestic economy, for a domestic country, for an independent nation state to grow strong. And to the extent you import human capital to replace your own domestic human capital, that weakens the future. Before I get into that, though, just a brief little look into 2025. The political, economic, and national security climate at home and abroad is unsettled as we step into the new year. The left and democracy is under the gun in Europe, from the British Isles to Romania. Russia's invasion of Ukraine rages on with massive death and destruction on both sides. Iran and her proxies in the Middle East and the Arab Peninsula are on the run. China is battling domestically on many fronts, economically, politically, and continues to prepare to attack Taiwan. South Korea is in political turmoil, Japan too. Canada is ready for a new leader and a pushback on the progressive agenda. The narco state of Mexico remains a thorn in the side of the U.S., and Malay and Argentina is forging a new direction for the country. And China continues to make inroads in America's backyard, Central and South America, using lending and economic incentives to reduce American influence in the region. And the Democrats make ready to challenge the Trump team at every turn at the federal and state level for the next 4 years. Lawyers, rev up your billable hours. Trump has to make it 15 more days to get to his swearing in as the 47th president of the United States. There is some anxiety on the right about that. Fingers crossed. Challenges will present themselves right away, including the state of the economy and inflation, massive deficit spending by the Dems as they leave office, unfinished budget work, efforts by the Biden team to hamstring Trump's initiatives on energy, government employees, the Department of Justice, and potential legal efforts, the January 6th prisoner pardons, how to pull off the deportation plans without causing violence, the sentencing of Trump on the New York documents fraud case on January 10th, renewed concerns over domestic terror attacks, unknown drones flying over U.S. airspace, longshoreman union contract negotiations coming back up, the debt ceiling debate coming up, and of course, budget negotiations for fiscal year 2025, even though we're already in fiscal year 2025. And in the first year of fiscal year 2025, we're in up the largest monthly deficit in history, $336 billion for November. Senate confirmations of Trump cabinet picks will be a challenge. Expect a cascade of executive orders from Trump in the first days, filling empty seats in the House and the Senate for those Trump is taking into his administration. The list could go on, and it would definitely include GOP infighting already sparked off by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy over immigration and H-1B visas. Which brings me to the main topic of the podcast today, H-1B visas and human capital. Let's remind ourselves, Elon and Vivek are not elected officials, nor are they appointed cabinet officials. And yet they're talking and acting as if they are. That won't go well for much longer. President Trump has to hire them as employees of the executive branch to give them some credibility in making comments about Trump policy and the Trump administration. The GOP has been in this position before, control the White House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, more state houses than Democrats, and they messed it up pretty good. Are they going to do it again? My sense is they will. That's to say, they'll mess it up again. Trump is making ready for yet another conservative effort at supply-side economics to stimulate growth in the form of lower taxes, in some cases wrongly so. Think lowering taxes on tips and overtime, as well as reducing regulations and protecting domestic industry via increased tariffs on imports. This was tried Ronald Reagan, George Bush, a little bit Donald Trump's first term. No evidence this has worked yet. And that's always because there's no cut in spending on the back of the cut in taxes. Much of what Trump is bringing forward will be inflationary in the short run. Is there any concern about deficits and debt? Will he come through on his campaign promises? It's to be determined, but there are already reasons to be concerned, sparked by the kerfuffle that sprang from Vivek Ramaswamy dissing American workers in favor of more immigration via the H-1B visa program, which was quickly backed by Elon Musk and instantly fractured GOP unity ahead of the inauguration. Vivek, after his comments in late December about American workers, will ensure he never becomes president. That's to be certain. He will never be a GOP candidate for president after those comments. It was a mean-spirited critique of American culture and American families. Some of what he said, of course, is true. And some of the cause for why American companies push so hard for more H-1B visas. To be sure, though certainly not the only factor. And what did he have to say? This was Vivek Ramaswamy at X. The reasons top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we are really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 1990s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champion or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Stefan Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. More weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons. Well, thank you, Vivek, for the attack on Americans, stupid, uneducated Americans. Musk didn't take long to get involved, and it didn't help the matter. Someone responding to Vivek Ramaswamy on X kicked off Elon Musk. And Musk said, the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong is because of the H-1B visa. And he continued, take a big step back and F yourself in the face. And he concludes, I will go to war on the issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. Okay, nice little threat there from Elon Musk. To the MAGA base. Vivek is a citizen through birth, and Elon is a citizen via H-1B visas. We can appreciate some of their bias here in support of this program. Many on the right and MAGA supporters did not like the content or the tone of the two Doge leaders' comments. Trump seemingly supported the comments, the offensive comments from both of these Doge leaders, and seems to have changed his position on H-1B visas. While Trump did better than any president since Ronald Reagan in reducing illegal immigration during his first term, many of his promises on the topic were left unfilled. Over the past 4 years, everything immigration has worsened under Biden. We need some serious correction on immigration. In 2016, Trump was against the H-1B visa. Today, he is for it. In March of 2016, Trump said this. Megyn Kelly asked about highly skilled immigration. The H-1B program is neither high-skilled nor immigration. These are temporary foreign workers imported from abroad for the explicit purpose of substituting for American workers at lower pay. I remain totally committed to eliminating rampant, widespread H-1B abuse and ending outrageous practices such as those that occurred at Disney in Florida, when Americans are forced to train their foreign replacements. I will end forever the use of the H-1B visa as a cheap labor program and institute an absolute requirement to hire American workers first for every visa and immigration program, no exceptions. That was a strong position of Trump in 2016. That's the position MAGA base supports. Now in 2025, having just run on a campaign with lots of talk about reducing immigration and securing our borders, Trump says this about H-1B visas. I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in H-1B. I've used it many times. It's a great program. Well, that's a 180. Which one is it, Donald? Which one is the lie? Already a fracture is developed. The MAGA base is not for more H-1B visas. The MAGA base, conservatives, Republicans generally, are for lower levels of legal immigration, period. No matter, because when it comes to work visas, tech, agriculture, and food processing always win. Always win. Here's what most Americans want and have wanted in poll after poll since the late 1970s after passage of the Immigration Reform Act of 1965. They want less overall legal immigration and having a skilled-based system to allow those people in legally. Immigration based on merit. So think the H-1B visa. I'm all on board. That should be our visa policy, period. H-1B, that's it. Americans want secure borders and the end of illegal immigration, zero illegal immigration, an end to chain migration and birthright citizenship. It's not hard. It's pretty simple. Immigration is not a complex topic. Basically, Americans want fewer foreign nationals given a pathway to citizenship. Not zero, mind you, because most Americans realize immigration practiced prudently has and can be a net benefit to the U.S. economy, culture, and society. For years now, legal immigration has been running well above 1.3 million people on an annualized basis. For years now, of course, driven by Joe Biden, illegal immigration is 2 million plus a year. Americans just want lower levels of legal immigration and no illegal immigration. What does lower levels of legal immigration mean? 250 to 500,000 persons per year. That would calm the right. In election cycle after election cycle, most of the Republicans and some Democrats said they agreed and they would do so when they get into office, which is to say, end illegal immigration, reduce legal immigration. Instead, it's been one big lie motivated by fundraising for re-election to placate the agricultural sector, diversifying the population, and managing the blowback of America's military activities around the world. Spend some time checking into this correlation between wherever America has gone to war and immigration that starts from that country or region. Can go all the way back to World War I, of course. You can go all the way back to the Spanish-American War to see this correlation. We all know now, and even the New York Times has admitted, the Biden administration has blown a hole in immigration policy and laws in a way few could have imagined or predicted in 2020. We have all the laws in the books we need to have an immigration policies most voters want. Congress, presidents, governors, and mayors refuse to enforce them. What is at stake is domestic human capital. Again, the physical, mental, intangible skills gained through birth, parenting, enhanced through education, work, experience, living life. To the extent we rely on foreign nationals to do work Americans could otherwise do, we reduce our own domestic human capital and become dependent on non-citizens for future growth and prosperity. And that's dangerous. Immigration policies, short-term work visas, competition with the world has disincentivized many Americans from working in agriculture, food processing, tech, engineering, or landscaping. From the lowliest blue-collar job to the highest-paid white-collar job, Americans have had to compete with the rest of the world since the 1980s for work in their own country. Human capital in the realm of global competition amongst nation-states requires domestic dominance. America is challenged, to be sure, as both K through 12 and post-secondary education in America is failing most students. So what about the H-1B visas? Here is a brief rundown of current immigration policy and the laws that are in place to control it. Today, as it has been since 1965, Current U.S. immigration policy is based on the concept of family reunification. According to U.S. current law, there are supposed to be only 500,000 family-based visas issued each year. Once an individual who went to the U.S. on a family-based visa becomes a lawful permanent resident or U.S. citizen, they are then allowed to bring in their family members. However, there are no limits on the number of visas for family members. There are 5 preferences for entry into the country as permanent resident: spouses of U.S. citizens, unmarried minor children of U.S. citizens, parents of U.S. citizens, adult children and brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens, spouses and unmarried children of legal permanent residents. In 2023, over 80% of all legal immigrants came in under the family reunification umbrella. In addition to the family reunification visas, the driving force for legal immigration, there are also employment-based visas. There are temporary and permanent employment visas. For short-term employment, there are over 20 different visa types, the most popular being the H-1B visa. Short-term visa immigrants are typically sponsored by an employer and are usually, though increasingly less so, for skilled positions. India dominates this category of immigrant visa issuance. There are visa preferences for performers, athletes, religious workers, diplomats, and agricultural workers. Permanent employment visas are supposed to be capped by law at 140,000 per year. Again, the key word there is supposed to be. They are not. There are 5 categories of permanent employment visas: persons of extraordinary ability, persons with advanced degrees or exceptional ability in the arts, science, or business, skilled workers in sectors experiencing worker shortages, special immigrants, and persons who will invest $500,000 to $1 million in a job-creating enterprise. But visa issuance in the U.S. doesn't end there. There are visas issued for refugees, asylees, and vulnerable populations. In 2010, President Obama increased the yearly number to 80,000 from 5 regions: Africa, East Asia, Europe and Central Asia, Latin America and Caribbean, Near East and South Asia. In fact, you may remember the Boston Marathon bombers from Chechnya. They entered the U.S. on refugee visas. Lastly, there is a State Department-administered diversity visa lottery program. This program is designed to allow in immigrants from countries that don't already have high numbers of people admitted into the U.S. The cap on this program is supposed to be 50,000. When we take a look at permanent visas issued, 35% of all legal immigrants were under 16 or over 65 years of age. Age groups not typically viewed as making net contributions to the economy. Current U.S. immigration law legally imposes per-country limits for visa issuance. The law states that permanent immigrants from a single country cannot be more than 7% of the yearly total. Since 1990, over 70% of all legal immigrants that have entered the U.S. have come from Mexico, India, and China. The H-1B visa program is badly abused. Just consider what elected officials at the federal and state level have set up for us over the past 40 years. Unilateral free trade, so lowering barriers to trade here while foreign countries keep barriers to trade up for American exports. Open borders immigration, allow for the outsourcing of American jobs overseas, and at the same time allowing for the import of workers to replace U.S. workers here at lower costs. There is a whole industry running this business, and it's led by a company called Infosys, one of a dozen so-called body shops, rent-a-programmer staffing companies. It is easier for an American company to find a programmer or coder in Mumbai than to find anyone anywhere in the U.S. There is a pipeline full of foreign workers, for tech mostly from India and China, and they're ready to go. Infosys Limited, an Indian company involved in consulting, technology, and outsourcing, has recently agreed to a record $34 million civil settlement based on the allegations of systemic fraud and abuse of immigration processes, and also agreed to enhance corporate compliance measures. The $34 million payment made by Infosys as a result of these allegations represents the largest payment ever levied in an immigration case. Infosys is located in 30 countries and in 17 U.S. cities, including a location in Plano, Texas. The Plano location is responsible for handling the immigration practices and procedures for U.S. operations of Infosys. Infosys brings foreign nationals into the United States to perform work and fulfill contracts with its customers under 2 visa classification programs relevant to this matter, H-1B and B-1. H-1B visas, again, are limited by Congress to 65,000. The numbers vary. I've seen as much as 135,000 per year. However, there is no limit to B1 visitors. And the B1 visa program only allows foreign nationals to temporarily enter the United States for conferences, seminars, and similar visits. B1 visa holders are not allowed to work in the United States. Infosys unlawfully and fraudulently used B1 visa visitors as though they were H-1B workers in violation of U.S. immigration law. According to court documents, the federal government alleged instances of Infosys circumventing the requirements, limitations, and governmental oversight of the H-1B visa program by knowingly and unlawfully using B-1 visa holders to perform skilled labor positions in the United States for employment that would otherwise be performed by U.S. citizens or by legitimate H-1B visa holders. The government also alleges that Infosys violated U.S. immigration laws to increase its profit, minimize costs of securing visas, increase flexibility of employee movement, obtain an unfair advantage over competitors, and avoid tax liabilities. For decades now, whole IT departments consisting of mostly American citizens have been fired and replaced by lower-cost foreign nationals. And the American workers, in most cases, were required to retrain their foreign replacements. Consider Trump comments from earlier on his now like and use of the H-1B visa program. It is supposed to be for skilled workers to sectors, jobs where American labor supply is too low. Think tech jobs. Trump runs service companies. What tech workers is he bringing in? Well, I can tell he's not bringing in a lot of tech workers. He's bringing in a lot of low-skilled service workers, not what the program is for. This, of course, happens across the country every year. Again, the data vary, but anywhere from 65,000 to 135,000 H-1B workers are brought into the country each year, and many stay well past their short-term visa allowance. Qualified foreign workers on the program need to be sponsored by a company to get the visa, which lasts 3 years, extendable to 6 years, after which they need to leave the country and reapply. And if they lose their job for any reason, they have to leave the country. Well, that's what they're supposed to do anyway. The visa holder must maintain employment at the visa sponsor to retain the work visa. The worker would have to leave the country if the employment ends for whatever reason. This has led to some criticism as it gives tremendous power to the employer and can lead to modern version of indentured servitude, to be sure. While there are obvious benefits to bringing skilled workers into the U.S., people are divided on the issue because those workers are often paid less than U.S. workers, a driving force for the program, putting negative pressure on compensation, especially in the tech industry, on top of the moral questions about holding visas over the heads of foreign workers. That's why Congress has mandated a 65,000 visa cap, limiting the number of H-1B visas that can be issued each fiscal year, plus an extra 20,000 for foreign people coming out of graduate programs at U.S. universities. Checking on the Center for Immigration Studies, and a great source of information on immigration, CIS.org, Center for Immigration Studies. In 2023, 1 out of every 6 legal immigrant was issued a visa based on the applicant's skill or education or employment prospects. In contrast, 2/3 were issued based solely on family relationships, with an additional 6% selected via the so-called diversity visa lottery. For among millions of applicants with little more than a high school diploma. The remainder of those are refugees, asylees, etc. Increasing the share of new immigrants selected based on their skills, described as a merit-based system, has long been a goal of President Trump. And again, put the H-1B visa program at the top of the pyramid as the driving force for immigration, and the MAGA base is happy. Moving away from a family reunification-based system to a skill-based, merit-based system. The H-1B visa program could be a start of what legal immigration is about, bringing skilled workers, a merit-based system, rather than family reunification. Given that the foreign-born share of our population has exceeded anything ever recorded, it's higher now than it was during the Ellis Island era, with no natural end in sight. Increasing the overall level of immigration is a non-starter. Or you could abolish the chain migration family categories for any but the husbands, wives, and little children of U.S. citizens, and eliminate the diversity visa lottery and reassign all those 450 to 500,000 green cards to skilled-based admissions, leaving the overall annual level of immigration the same. Great solution, great idea. But don't forget, there are other short-term visas for work and work permits. Again, in total, over 1.2 million people per year come in to take white-collar jobs. Bernie Sanders got involved in this. I don't often agree with Bernie, and I think this comment doesn't represent his actual voting record over the years, but this is what Bernie Sanders had to say about Musk and Ramaswamy. Sanders says, 30 years ago, the economic elite and political establishment in both major parties told us not to worry about the loss of blue-collar manufacturing jobs that come as a result of disastrous, unfettered trade agreements like NAFTA and permanent world trade relations with China. That's Bill Clinton, 1994 NAFTA, 1999 permanent normal trade relations with China. It's been a disaster ever since. They promised that those lost jobs would be more than offset by many good-paying white-collar information technology jobs that would be created in the United States. Well, it turned out to be a big lie, says Bernie. Not only have corporations exported millions of blue-collar manufacturing jobs to China, Mexico, and other low-wage countries, they are now importing hundreds of thousands of low-paid guest workers from abroad to fill the white-collar technology jobs that are available. Sanders continued, Elon Musk is wrong. The main function of the H-1B visa program is not to hire the best and the brightest, but rather to replace good-paying American jobs with low-wage indentured servants from abroad. And so I say to you, Mr. President, Americans who supported you want less immigration, not more. They want the mix to be made up of people who can help contribute to our economy, society, culture the most, a merit-based system. Our laws already state immigrants can't come into the country legally unless they can support themselves or have someone that can support them. You cannot be dependent on the government handouts as soon as you enter the country. With all that said, my guess voters are going to lose on this issue. Trump will disappoint in a variety of ways in the next 4 years. Let's hope on net it will be less and not more. But my prediction is immigration will be one of those ways. All right, that's all I have for you right now. Always try to buy American.